Hi, this is Narsimlachari. I am a RAA specialist in HCL UXD RAA group. In today's session, I am going to demonstrate how to develop an application using RobotLegs Framework. Coming to our today's agenda, what is RobotLegs Framework? Why RobotLegs Framework? Core components of RobotLegs Framework, flow diagram of RobotLegs, and code walkthrough. Coming to what is RobotLegs Framework? It's a pure A3 micro architecture framework and it is applicable for Flex as well as Flash applications. It is completely built on MVC, that's a model view controller, and service. And the great feature of a RobotLegs framework is it will manage dependency injection using inject metadata tag with an application. Now this concept is derived from Spring. And using this RobotLegs framework we can able to avoid boilerplate code. In the sense, in the case of a pure MVC, to achieve a small things we need to do a lot of things. But in the case of a RobotLegs, we no need to bother about all those things. And this framework is completely loosely coupled because all layers are independent to each other. And this framework supports very less time to develop an application because we are avoiding boilerplate code using this RobotLegs framework. And coming to why RobotLegs framework, using this RobotLegs framework we can able to avoid using of a singleton classes, whereas in the case of a pure MVC we have a singleton classes but internally, but still RobotLegs framework doesn't support singleton classes. And the main problem with singleton classes are we cannot able to do unit testing on those classes. And RobotLegs framework avoid these singleton classes, because of that it is highly testable. And once an application is designed using this RobotLegs framework, maybe in the future we can migrate this application to any other frameworks at any point of time. And RobotLegs framework strongly supports complete decoupling mechanism because all the layers are independent to each other. In this framework, all layers are designed in a proper way to communicate each other so that all layers has its place. And coming to code reusability, now in the case of a RobotLegs framework, view is completely independent of framework. So we can reuse same code in another place also. And this is all about like why RobotLegs framework is. And next, coming to core components of RobotLegs framework, and these are the basic core components: context, mediator, command, service, model, and actor. And here this diagram shows the quick flow of RobotLegs framework, but anyway later we are going to be discuss in detail about this complete flow. So let me move on to next slide. In the RobotLegs framework, the first one is context. The initial loading and bootstrapping of your application is nothing but total initial mappings will place under this class, and it is same as application fetched in pure MVC. But a context is not a singleton class. Your application can have n number of contexts, and inside a context we need to override a method called startup method. Now inside a method, that is startup, we are going to be initialize all initial mappings of your RobotLegs application, and each context class has to extend context of a RobotLegs framework. In initial mappings, we are going to be map between a view to mediator, mediator to command, registering services, and model. This is all about a context. If we come to second one, that is mediator. Now mediator sits between a view and the rest of the application. Each mediator has to extend a class called mediator of a RobotLegs framework. And mediator has several responsibilities like listening events from a view and dispatching event to a command. And every mediator has to override a method called onRegister method. The importance of onRegister method is all listeners should be defined inside onRegister method. Mediator can able to inject a view and model. If you observe the diagram, if you want to call a particular mediator from a view through context only possible. That is, the initial mapping, which view has to invoke which mediator, is defined inside a context. It's all about a mediator. And if you come to next one, that is command. A command is used to bypass the request which is coming from the mediator to appropriate service. Each command has to extend command class of a RobotLegs framework. Each command has to override a method called execute method. By default, the control goes to execute method of a command. The command will be configured inside a context using command map method, and command can able to inject service events or models also. And apart from this diagram, we can able to understand from a mediator it will dispatch an event, and this event is configured inside a context. From context it has to call appropriate command to be invoked. It's all about a command. Come to the next one, that is service. Each service has to implement an interface. A service is a simple class, but it has to implement an interface. Interface is also a plain old interface. A service will provide a different kinds of services like HTTP service, remote object, and web service. And a service is responsible to call a Java or .NET service, and once data is coming to Flex, this data will be updated in model. If you don't want to use any model in your application, then if you want, we can able to directly dispatch an event from service and transfer the control to a mediator also. Apart from the diagram, there is an interface and there are two implementation classes. For first implementation class, we are calling to just get a XML data, that's a local XML data. But for second implementation class, we are calling HTTP service to get the data from backend. It's all about a service. If you come to model, a model has to extend actor class of a RobotLegs framework. The main importance of model in RobotLegs is used to hold data as well as business logic also. Sometimes even model is used to hold state of an application. If you want to store the data inside a model, then with the help of a setters and getters, we need to update data in model. Because to provide a secure to a property of a RobotLegs framework, we can share the data which is stored in model among different components in an application. If you observe diagram, from command directly either we can able to call model or we can call a service. Service can call a model. This is the flow of between command, model and service. And the last one is, if you come to an actor, actor will play a vital role in RobotLegs framework because dispatch event is an event of flex event architecture. If you want to transfer control from service or model to mediator, it is not possible using dispatch event method. There is only one way. We have an event called dispatch of RobotLegs event. With this event we can able to transfer control from service or a model to a mediator. For example, if you observe in the diagram, so depending upon requirement, either service or model can extend an actor whenever the control has to transfer to mediator. This is all about actor class. And if you come to the diagram, the complete flow diagram of a RobotLegs framework. Now step 1, it represents user interface which is designed by a user. If you raise an event, it will go to a context and it will identify which is the appropriate mediator has to invoke. That is step 2. And once it will go to a mediator, from mediator it will go to a appropriate command with the help of a context itself. That is step 3. Step 4, from command, if you want to update any data, directly we can call a model and we can update data into a model. Otherwise, if you want to call any backend services, then for A we need to call a service, for B and it will call a backend service and fetch the data from there. For C, update the values into model. Once it is done, step 5, from model we are going to be update data in Vivo. Step 6, transfer the control from model to mediator again. Step 7, update user interface with the help of a mediator. This is the complete flow of RobotLegs frameworks. Total, there are 7 steps are involved in it. And come to code walkthrough. If you want to understand the complete flow, we can have a demonstration, and below diagram shows this is a sample application which we are trying to develop now. So let's start with coding. Yeah, let us start with code walkthrough. And I have created the basic sample application, and inside this application I have created the complete directory structure also, and even I defined what are the required ActionScript classes and everything. These are just basic directory structure. And keep in your mind, we need to copy paste RobotLegs Framework Swig file in libs if you want to use all these classes. And I have already created user interface, a view. This is a view already which is created. Now if you observe in the diagram carefully, the step 1 is first we need raise an event from UI, and which will go to appropriate mediator along with context configuration. So first step is, before going to be raise an event, go to application context, and inside application context first we need to override a method, override public function startup method, and inside this we need to configure view to mediator using mediator map dot map view, and the view name is main component, comma mediator name is user mediator. Just map this, and once it is done, go to main application, that's a sample app, and we need to instantiate an application context inside a main application, and context we need to pass the whole application as a parameter to application context, and this is the main component is a view which is instantiated in the main application. Now inside a view, now in submit function, just try to dispatch an event. Dispatch event of new event user event, and inside user event try to define a constant public static const add user equals to user, and come back to main component, and here try to take user event dot add user, and if you come back to a mediator, and in mediator we need to override function called on register, and inside this we need to define a listener event map dot map event listener, and map event listener will take 3 parameters. The first one is what is the view, and the second one is what is the event type, and the third parameter is handler. So first we need to inject a view public var main component. Now because it's a view, now the event is dispatching from here, so just we need to inject a view comma, the event is we are dispatching there, it's a user event dot add user. Now the handler is on add user. Try to define a function, public function on add user colon void event of type user event. And while sending data, just I wanted to take username as well as password also. Public var username of type just string, and public var password of type string. Define these two parameters inside an event, and uname of type string comma pwd of type string. And here this dot username equals to uname, this dot password equals to pwd. Just assign these two values. And in the view, while dispatching a value, even along with this event, we need to pass username as well as password also. Ti uname dot text comma ti password dot text. Now we are dispatching an event from main component along with username as well as password. Now once event is dispatched from view, it will go to appropriate mediator, and in mediator we are adding a event listener for this view, and it will go to this particular event. Now inside this handler again we need to dispatch an event once again. To go to dispatch new user event dot add user comma, we need to pass both the values, ti event dot username comma event dot password. We need to pass these two values. Now from mediator, apart from this diagram, from mediator again it has to go to appropriate command with the help of a context. And before going to command, we need to configure a command inside a context. Now how to configure a command inside a context? Now see, in application context, now from mediator we need to go to command. How to configure a command? There is a command map dot map event. The event name is user event dot add user comma, the command name is user command. Now if you raise an event that is add user from mediator, then with the help of this context file it will go to this appropriate user command. So inside a command we need to override execute method, and here in command we need to inject public var. The first one is we need to inject user event, because to fetch the data, that is username and password, and we need to even inject service also, that is user IMPL. So we need to inject an interface we need to inject a service. Now go to its implementation class. Now the implementation class is a user, and user IMPL is the implementation class. And go to interface, and inside the interface let me define a function. Let's say add user is a function, nothing to return, and I will take uname because we need to pass two parameters. So username comma pwd, that is string. I'm passing two values now, and in its implementation class we need to implement this function, that is function add user of what open close. If you want, you can define as a public, and here also we need to take uname of type string comma password of type string. Now in this method, now we can able to call method of a model. Now inside a implementation class we can able to inject a model public where user model. This is user model. Now come back to command. Right now we are in command. Now through command, now there's a I user. From service we need to call a method called add user, and we need to pass the two values, that is username and password. Now with the help of this event, now we can able to pass these two values, dot username comma user event dot password, so that it will go to this add user method, and inside a add user method we can able to access username as well as password. Now go to model, and inside a model try to define a public, try to define a method function same add user colon void, and here also same, let me take same parameters, username and password model. Now from implementation class in the service we need to call user model dot add. In user model we need to define this function as a public to access outside. So just define add user. Again we need to pass these two values itself, username as well as password. This is a uname which we are getting from command, and this is a password. Right now we are dealing with a local data, so no need to call any Java services. Let's suppose if you have a some kind of a remote services, let's suppose, then we need to call appropriate either HTTP service or remote service inside this add user method. Right now just I am working with a local data, so we need to call a method from model, and we need to pass these two values to model. Now see, apart from the diagram, from command either we can able to call a service or a command. Now what I am doing, from command just I have called this service, and from service I am calling a model, and from model now I will dispatch an event to go to a mediator. So from user module now again I am dispatching an event, dispatch event new event, that is user event, and here again user event dot add user comma, we need to pass again the variables uname comma password. Now if we dispatch an event, it will come back, and we need to add a listener in mediator. The listener is, sorry, for this, to transfer the control from model to a mediator, in the event we need to define another event. Let me say public static constant model underscore mediator of type string. This now transferring the control from model to mediator. So come back to user model, and inside this don't take add user, now try to take model to mediator. Now come back to user mediator. Here we need to event dispatcher dot add event listener of. We need to listen event. Event is user event dot model to mediator comma add users or add user. Again try to take one more function, public function add user colon void, and here we need to pass an event of type again user event. Now in main component we have a data grid called DG details, and go to main component and try to define array collection to bind the data to a data grid. Public where user details of array collection equals new array collection. Just try to create an object of this and provide this is the data provider to data grid. Now data provider, and just pass this as a data provider. Now in mediator we can access array collection as user details dot add item of. Before that let me create where temp object now temp dot uname equals to event dot username, temp dot password equals to event dot password. Now try to add this temp object to array collection. Now go to a data grid and we need to use uname and pwd as a data field to data grid. Data field uname and data field for password is just pwd. Now that's it. Now this is a complete flow of a RobotLegs framework. We did once everything is done. The last thing is we need to configure service as well as model inside application context. So now injector dot map singleton of what is the interface we need to define over here. I user, then user IMPL. This is one we need to configure, and models even for models. So injector dot map singleton of user model. Now all four configurations are required to execute our application. Now try to execute up. Now let's see, enter admin and admin as a password. Just click on submit. Now it is adding a value. using the third RobotLegs framework. And let me enter another one is user and user and say submit on this. Again it is adding all the users. Means now this is a sample application which we have developed using the complete RobotLegs framework. This is the end of the demo. You can reach me on narsimlu.chaudhary@hcl.com or you can reach me on these contact numbers.